Okay, let's talk about a book that is, well, it's a phenomenon. I'm talking about Yuval Noah Harari's Sapiens, A Brief History of Humankind. This thing has been a fixture on bestseller lists for years. It's been read by presidents, by tech billionaires, you name it. But it's also a book that has really split the room among experts. So that's our big question today. Is Sapiens a work of genius, or is it a deeply flawed history?
And that quote right there, that's kind of at the heart of the whole debate. You hear this a lot from specialists, that this worldwide sensation is nothing more than history for airport bookstores. So how on earth does a book that's so loved by millions get a label like that? Well, that's exactly what we're going to break down.
But before we dive into the criticisms, you have to understand just how massive Sapiens really is. I mean, its success is absolutely staggering.
We're talking about a true global bestseller here. It's been translated into dozens and dozens of languages. It has reached a scale that's almost unheard of for a book about, history.
And it's not just the sheer number of sales. The book has gotten these glowing endorsements from some of the most influential people on the planet. I mean, when people like Barack Obama and Bill Gates start calling a book brilliant and eye-opening, that creates this huge cultural wave.
So here's why people love it. Sapiens does something pretty incredible. It takes 70,000 years of human history and boils it all down into one single compelling story. It's written in this really clear, engaging way that connects biology and economics and philosophy, and it makes you question everything you thought you knew about society. Things like money, religion, even human rights. It's designed to be provocative. But, and you knew there was a but coming, right? For a lot of professional historians, anthropologists, and scientists, that popular success comes with some pretty serious footnotes. So now let's get into the other side of the story.
Okay, so what is the problem? If millions of readers, including some of the smartest people in the world, absolutely love this book, why do so many academics have such big issues with it? Well, the critiques really boil down to a couple of key areas.
The first big issue that critics bring up is oversimplification. The argument is that in his search for this grand, sweeping narrative, Harari often smooths over the messy details and sometimes sacrifices scientific and historical accuracy just to tell a better story. Let's take this direct quote from the book as a prime example. Harari writes that 6 million years ago, a single ape had two daughters. One became the ancestor of all chimps, and the other, our great-great-great, you get it, our grandmother. It's a simple, really memorable picture. The problem is,
That's just not how evolution works. Not even close. It's a fundamental misunderstanding of a slow, gradual process that happens over millions of years to entire populations, not to two sisters in one afternoon. So Harari's version is this very simple, dramatic story. The scientific consensus, on the other hand, is that humans and chimps share a common ancestor, and our two family trees split off from that ancestral group over a huge amount of time. It's not as snappy of a story, for sure, but it is accurate. And critics worry that by simplifying it this much, Harari actually creates some pretty big misconceptions for his readers. And this isn't just a one-off thing. Specialists see a pattern here. For instance, Harari argues Christianity held back science, but critics immediately point to people like Gregor Mendel, the father of genetics, who was a monk. He calls the entire agricultural revolution a fraud, which kind of ignores that it had huge benefits for a lot of societies. He even claims we got big brains by taking energy away from our biceps, which is a cool idea, but it's presented as fact with no real source. The list goes on.
Okay, so that's the first big critique. The second one is just as important. A lot of scholars argue that for a book that's called A Brief History of Humankind, its focus is overwhelmingly European.
So let's look at the main pillars of Harari's story for the last 500 years or so. You've got the scientific revolution, European colonialism, the rise of capitalism, the Industrial Revolution. See the pattern? Critics argue that the book basically frames world history around these European events, which can make it seem like Europe was the only real driver of progress and change in the world. So what gets left out or kind of pushed to the side in this version of the story? Well, a lot. The huge trade networks of the Chinese Silk Road, the incredible scientific leaps of the Islamic Golden Age, the Indian invention of the number zero, the Mayan calendar. These aren't just footnotes. They're central to the story of humankind. The criticism is that non-European civilizations often only show up in the book when they're being conquered by Europeans.
One anthropologist's review really just sums up this frustration perfectly, asking, how can you say you're writing a history of humankind when the story is so focused on European events?
Okay, so we've got all this praise on one side and all this serious criticism on the other. Where does that leave us? How are we supposed to think about Sapiens? Is it an essay or is it a textbook?
The view that's really emerging among many scholars is this. Sapiens is best seen as a brilliant and really stimulating philosophical essay. It uses history as a kind of launch pad to ask these huge, provocative questions about who we are. But, and this is key, it is not, and it really shouldn't be treated as, a reliable, definitive history textbook.
So this table is a really helpful way to frame it. You should absolutely read Sapiens for its huge ideas, for the provocative questions it asks, and for its incredibly engaging story. It's an amazing place to start thinking about our species. But you probably shouldn't read it for precise factual accuracy on every single detail, or for scholarly nuance, or for a truly balanced global history. It's a powerful interpretation, not the final definitive word.
And that, right there, is the crucial takeaway. The value of Sapiens isn't in giving you all the answers. Its real value is in sparking your curiosity and starting a conversation. So the advice from experts is this. Read it, enjoy it, let it challenge you, but read it with a critical eye, knowing it's one fascinating perspective among many.
Which leaves us all with a final, much bigger question that goes way beyond just this one book. In our age of information overload, we crave these huge, big history stories that explain everything. But how should we consume them? How do we balance the pure joy of a good story with the demands of good scholarship? Now that is a question worth thinking about.